It's Mother Nature's wrath, her biggest storm. When warm ocean waters create massive rotating storms that rip away our shorelines or move inland, striking with violent wind.
They said that we have 30 minutes to an hour to evacuate.
We heard everything start to blow, and then the power went out.
Heavy rain and widespread flooding.
Everything we've ever worked for is just gone.
It keeps rising, and it's getting closer.
Florida's hurricane season is like none other. We've seen devastation.
My heart was beating out of my chest. I didn't know if I'd still have a house to come home to.
And resilience.
We'll make it through it.
I wasn't hurt. None of my neighbors were hurt. We all got through it, you know.
Each time, it's preparation and staying informed that pay off. You're watching a Severe Weather Center 9 special. The calm before the storm.
It's hurricane season in Florida. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Terry. And over the next half hour, our team of meteorologists are going to be going over a lot of information to help keep you and your family safe. A lot of this information, Brian, comes from great high-definition sources.
Yeah, in each storm, we go through dozens and dozens of computer models. Plus, every 60 seconds, we get updated high-definition satellite images. So, yeah, a lot to go through.
Yeah, a lot of data coming in. We're always sorting through the data, going through the forecast models, and going through what's going to be a whole new list of names. And Cassie, we hope we don't ever get to those names this year.
That's right. Last year, Tom, it was such an active season, record-breaking, really, with 30 named storms. And we got into the Greek alphabet for the second time ever. But there's going to be a big switch this year. That Greek alphabet, it's going away.
Yeah, we got a whole list of brand new names. And George, for all the storms, people may have to evacuate just to save their family.
Yeah, we have a rapidly growing population here in Central Florida. So I looked into how this could potentially impact future evacuations.
And of course, it's an evacuation with all the problems of COVID-19, Rusty.
Yeah, look, Tom, if you have to evacuate and seek shelter, COVID-19 has changed things. I'll go over those safety measures for you and your family. We'll talk about what it's going to be like when you come home, and then home generators. They can be very dangerous, so we'll go over the safety measures for those.
Yeah, we've had a lot of problems with home generators, carbon monoxide poisoning. So a lot of new information to pass along to you over the next half hour. So we're here to keep you safe. Let me get things kicked off. Florida has been ground zero for tropical systems over the past several years. In fact, since 2016, a total of 13 storms have either made landfall in the state or have been close enough to bring us impacts.
The last couple of years, every single storm's been really close, but not directly over us, and we still had a fair amount of damage.
Central Florida has been dealt blows by 7 of these storms, most recently a glancing blow by both Isaias and Ada in 2020. We narrowly dodged Major Hurricane Dorian that devastated the northern Bahamas in 2019, but steered a course off our east coast, sparing us a direct hit. In 2018, the state was also hit by its 3rd Category 5 hurricane when Michael hammered the Panhandle with winds of 165 miles per hour.
I spent about 2.5 hours in my bathroom. I had to take all my food and water in there because I didn't know what was going to happen to the rest of the house. This was probably the scariest I've ever been in my life.
We did have widespread impacts from Hurricane Irma, which spread flooding rain, tornadoes, and wind damage throughout Central Florida in 2017. Hurricane Matthew brought record storm surge to our East Coast back in 2016.
My ceilings are leaking. I had a roof over, they call it, and it blew off.
And the damage to Highway A1A was widespread, showing why mandatory evacuations were necessary.
Unbelievable what nature can do. We're blessed. I feel very blessed by God.
Yeah, what a busy 6 seasons we've had so far. And really, we've been active since 1995. It'll be 26 years this year. That's when the water temperatures in the Atlantic started getting warmer than normal. And we don't know how long this will last. It normally lasts about 20 to 40 years, so we're maybe only halfway through. Where you see the brighter colors here, that's where water temperatures are very, very warm. In fact, most of the Atlantic, where storms form, is warmer than normal. This extra fuel for storms is something I think that could create another very active season for us again this year. So we're going to be ready. Let's go over to meteorologist Cassandra Crimi with the names we may be hearing a lot of this year.
The practice of naming tropical storms and hurricanes is something we've been doing since 1953. A system really to help reduce confusion when we're tracking more than one storm at a time. So here's how that naming system works. The Atlantic Basin has 6 lists that are recycled or rotated every 6 years. So this means that the storm names for 2021 all the way through 2026 have already been determined. This year's list that you see here, starting with Anna and ending with Wanda, will actually be used again in 2027. The only reason for any of the names to change on this list is if one of these storms becomes destructive enough to be retired. Just this year, the World Meteorological Organization decided to retire 4 storm names: Dorian, Laura, Ada, and Iota. And standard practice is to replace each of these retired names with a new name starting with the same letter. So Dorian will now be replaced with Dexter, which we would see in 2025. Laura will be replaced by Leah, which we would see in 2026. But what about Ada and Iota? Retiring not 1, but 2 Greek names put the WMO in uncharted territory. It had never been done. We'd only had to use the Greek alphabet twice last year and back in 2005. But having to retire these Greek names wasn't the only shortcoming. The WMO found that names led to plenty of other confusion, some of it dealing with the translation, others dealing with people focusing more on the name itself than the actual storm impacts and the safety information given out. So for these reasons that we are seeing a big shift in the naming system this year. Moving forward, if we again blow through the 21 standard names, we won't be going to the Greek alphabet. Instead, a supplemental list of names will be used, and you can see it here, starting with Adria and ending with Will. Cassandra Cramey, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
All right, Cassie, the National Hurricane Center uses the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale to measure storm strength and potential destruction. The scale looks at wind speed and assigns it a 1 to 5 rating.
A Category 1 hurricane has winds of 74 to 95 miles per hour. That can certainly cause roof damage to homes or large branches to snap. Hurricane Charlie in 2004 had weakened, but was still a Category 1 hurricane when it moved right over Central Florida.
Oh, my God!
Winds that are 96 to 110 miles per hour are classified as a Category 2 hurricane. A Cat 2 can uproot trees, cause more major damage to homes, and cause power outages that can last for days to weeks. Hurricane Francis, which followed Charlie a few weeks after in 2004, was a Category 2 at landfall. It only gets worse from there as we now move into major hurricanes, Categories 3, 4, and 5. A Cat 3 has winds 111 to 129 miles per hour. You may remember Hurricane Katrina. It was a Category 3 at landfall in Louisiana, but was much stronger earlier on out in the Gulf of Mexico. A Category 4 hurricane has winds of 130 to 156, and destruction can be devastating to entire communities and make areas uninhabitable for weeks or months. Power outages will last weeks to possibly months as well. Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico as a top-end Cat 4. And a Category 5 hurricane has winds of 157 miles per hour or higher. These are rare. A high percentage of homes will be destroyed with total roof failure and walls collapsing. Hurricane Michael's 160 mile per hour winds devastated parts of the Florida Panhandle as only the 4th Category 5 hurricane to make landfall in the U.S.
Hurricane season lasts 6 months, coming to an end on November 30th. Meteorologist Brian Shields breaks down which months we could see the most hurricanes and what's behind all that activity.
Early in the season, we are looking close to home for development. So sometimes you don't have a ton of lead time on some of the storms that pop up. So we're looking in the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and even into the western sections of the Atlantic by the Bahamas as you get closer to the Gulf Stream. So with that said, that's why we're here to let you know when the storms will pop up. Early in the season, there's a couple of reasons they kind of are homegrown storms. You have these old fronts nearby that could spin something up. Plus, it's a little more shallow here, so the water temperatures heat up quicker. Now, as we get just into the month of July, July, we're still looking in those same spots, but then things kind of broaden out as the rest of the Atlantic basin starts to heat up. And then even more so, we're looking out here August, September into early October with, again, the peak of the season a little bit later. So this is how it breaks down. Average named storms per month. And again, you usually get a couple in the Atlantic basin early on, and we'll watch it. And again, some of those are typically closer to home. September, the peak of the season, on average about 3 to 4 named storms. And over the last 10 years, it's been even more than that. And usually from about August through mid-October, that's when it is very active. And of course, we'll keep you posted on everything regardless of when things develop during the hurricane season.
All right, thanks, Brian. We have to go back all the way to 2004 to see the last major hurricane that made landfall locally. That was Jeanne. Certified meteorologist George Waldberger looked into how our recent boom in population could impact how people evacuate a storm threat.
Irma, Matthew, and the relentless 2020 hurricane season. It seems we've been tropically hyperactive, but there's one thing locally we haven't had recently, a direct landfall.
We got to go back to Jeanne and early 2000s before you really get these big hurricanes coming ashore.
And since that infamous 2004 hurricane season, one of the biggest things that's changed for more than 4 million Central Florida residents.
Our population has increased. In 2004, Brevard County was a little over 500,000, and in 2019, that's the most recent data that we have available so far, and they're at over 600,000 now.
That's a gain of almost 100,000 people in Brevard County. And in Volusia, almost 100,000 more people as well.
We know that this is a booming area in the state.
I sat down with Don Walker with Brevard County Emergency Management, asking him if populations were growing in evacuation zones and if this could make it harder to evacuate.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we know that's the case. The concern is the storm surge as a result of the hurricane and flooding that may occur along the coastline. So those are really the areas that are our main focus, and the red on this indicates which areas would be more in harm's way than others.
Brevard County's emergency management webpage has a link to evacuations where you can enter your home's address to see if you live in an evacuation zone or not.
We're in the process of updating the State Regional Evacuation Study Plan, ESRIS for short. We do it every couple years.
Due this summer, this study will give county emergency management officials tools to update and revise evacuation plans as our Florida population grows, eventually targeting 7 million people by 2050. In addition to the evacuations, there's something else to consider. I spoke with the National Hurricane Center's director, Ken Graham, and he said they had 100% evacuation with last year's Hurricane Laura in Louisiana. And when it produced 17 feet of storm surge, that took no lives, Tom.
Yeah, the storm surge didn't kill people, but in the days after, 14 deaths were due to carbon monoxide poisoning from generators. 14. A reminder, we must plan for safety after the storm passes as well.
Coming up next, tragedy that can be avoided. The missteps by people with generators that have resulted in a shocking number of hurricane-related deaths the last few years. Plus, with nearly 1,000 people moving to Florida every day, we've got new Floridians covered when it comes to preparing the inside and outside of your home and the impact the coronavirus pandemic is having on public shelters.
August 13th, 2004, when Major Hurricane Charley changed course and barreled into southwest Florida at Punta Gorda as a Category 4 storm. 100-mile-per-hour winds even swept right through the I-4 corridor with hurricane-force winds over Orlando at sunset. Hundreds of thousands were without power, some for weeks, and blue tarps sprung up like weeds on rooftops across the area. Many Floridians have very vivid memories. I know I do of Charley, but there are hundreds of thousands of people that have moved to Florida since 2004. In fact, more than 900 people move to Florida every single day. That comes out to roughly 330,000 people a year, which is like adding a slightly larger than Orlando every year. Economists estimate the population of Florida will grow to 22 million residents in 2022. And if you're one of those new Floridians who moved here for the sunshine, the shorelines, even retirement, hurricane season may be new territory for you. The Severe Weather Center 9 meteorologists will monitor the forecast models to keep you informed. But even before a system forms out in those warm ocean waters, you can get your home and family ready. Here's meteorologist Rusty McCraney.
In the event a hurricane heads towards Central Florida, you may either choose or be required to evacuate. Knowing what to have in your hurricane supply kit and how to correctly harden your property can save you a lot of headaches after the storm. Several steps should be made to your property to secure it before a hurricane arrives. Make sure lightweight items like lawn chairs are stored inside so they don't become flying projectiles. Board up windows or use hurricane shutters, and make sure to clean out gutters. If you must evacuate, make sure you have a fully stocked hurricane supply kit, including plenty of water and food, as you may be gone from your home for several days. A flashlight, battery-powered radio, first aid kit, and extra clothes are all things you should have in your kit. Fill prescriptions, bring important documents, and remember pet supplies. If you must evacuate to a public shelter, remember to bring COVID-19 supplies such as face masks, disinfectant wipes, and hand sanitizer. In some counties, non-congregate shelters such as hotels may open before larger public shelters such as schools to adhere to social distancing requirements. Now, when you return to your home, power could be out for several days, and many of you will use a generator for power. But generators can be dangerous if not used properly. Here's a shocking statistic for you. The leading cause of death from last year's hurricane season wasn't storm surge or wind. It was carbon monoxide poisoning. In fact, in the last 4 years, there's been more deaths from carbon monoxide poisoning than from storm surge. So take these steps when you use a generator. Never use a generator inside your home or garage, even if doors and windows are open. Only use generators outside, at least 20 feet away from your home. Install a battery-operated or battery backup CO detector near every sleeping area in your home. And you can find out more information on hurricane preparedness in the Eye on the Tropics section of WFTV.com.
Next, Hurricane Floyd's destruction. 100 feet of Daytona Main Street Pier blown away. Plus, stress and anxiety. Talking with your kids about an impending storm can be challenging. Add to that, families with special needs.
If you have a child with a physical disability, think ahead about where you might go to shelter, what might be handicap accessible.
The advice you need to hear to help your family ride out a hurricane.
In September 1999, Hurricane Floyd was responsible for 85 deaths. It took over 100 feet off Daytona's Main Street Pier as well. Floyd peaked as a Category 4 hurricane, and all of Florida's East Coast went under hurricane warnings. But the storm did turn after hitting the Bahamas at peak strength and paralleled the East Coast of the U.S. Preparing for a hurricane can be difficult for any of us, let alone families with special needs situations. Meteorologist Brian Shields shows us these unique challenges and ways to help children with special needs feel more comfortable during a storm.
Storms can be frightening, but being a source of calm for a family member with special needs is very important.
We could de-escalate that fear by making sure that we ourselves are calm so that we can bring a calmness to our children.
When a hurricane threatens, routines are flipped upside down. For children with special needs, involving them in the process provides a level of normalcy. Marie Cook, founder and director of Nathaniel's Hope, explains.
One of the things that you can do to help prepare your child for the storm is to simply make a storyboard with pictures and visuals that will help them see what might happen as they prepare for a storm or as they go through a storm.
Practicing the process helps too. If you might have to evacuate or plan on spending the hurricane at another home, involve your child.
By having them pack a little backpack and then having them put the backpack on and go for a walk in the neighborhood so they could get used to the thought of leaving home and going to a different place.
Prioritize items that calm your child.
Some of these items could be sensory items. Maybe create a little sensory bin with items that will help regulate them in times when the storm is happening and they don't know how to process their emotions. Having a sensory blanket or a weighted vest could also be a helpful tool to have.
And if you are in an evacuation zone, plan well in advance.
If you have a child with a physical disability, think ahead about where you might go to shelter, what might be handicap accessible, and plan ahead to find that hotel or that shelter.
As we know here in Central Florida, when a storm is on the horizon, we come together as a community to help one another.
Be a good neighbor and reach out to someone around you that might have a family that is impacted by disability. Offer to go shopping for them. Offer to provide anything that you might have. Offer them just assistance and support. A simple act of reaching out in a neighborly way could make such a big difference for a family that's struggling to keep their child calm during the midst of the storm.
Meteorologist Brian Shields, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Coming up next, the role NASA and our Space Coast are playing to improve hurricane prediction data.
One of the most devastating hurricanes to hit Florida was Hurricane Andrew in August 1992. The massive storm was blamed for 65 fatalities, $27 billion in damage. Andrew was a Category 5 storm near the Bahamas, briefly weakened to a Category 4, then regained Category 5 strength as it hit near Homestead, Florida. And a lot has changed in the last 30 years since Andrew. NASA has launched brand new satellites from right here on our Space Coast that give us more weather data. The more weather data we have, the better forecast we can put together to keep you and your families safe. You can count on the Eyewitness News team to track storms live on your television. We also stream our coverage on the WFTV News app. You can stay connected by following us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Stay safe.